So, yesterday, during a House Judiciary Committee markup on a bill to ban transgender women from women's sports, Democratic Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove brought up the Jeffrey Epstein files, specifically pointing to horrific details of child abuse and asking where the outrage is for those actual victims. Republican Representative Harriet Hageman responded by calling Democratic delegate Stacey Plaskett Jeffrey Epstein's fixer, which prompted Representative Jamie Raskin to point out Donald Trump's extensively documented friendship with Epstein. Things escalated from there. Let's watch what happened, and I will give you my take later at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to support my colleague's amendment. I want to actually also support my colleague from North Carolina, her amendment as well, and I associate myself with both of their remarks. Both of you from Vermont and North Carolina. Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about privacy and protection and safety. For the record, I do want to protect our athletes. I want to protect our boy athletes. I want to protect our girl athletes. I want to protect our girls. The president of the NCAA, and I know this was shared earlier, did tell Congress that there are less than 10, and not all of them are transgender women. There are less than 10 of the more than 500,000 NCAA athletes that this bill and these kinds of bills would be targeting. That is a small number. That is a small number to be using up so much of this committee's time when there are legitimate issues that are actually impacting someone's livelihood and their ability to be alive and to live safely. If we are going to talk about keeping predators out of our sports, I mean, the biggest predator is the NCAA mafia that is so focused on the bodies of our athletes and making revenue, getting more and more money. Scholarship's not a priority. Their mental health isn't a priority. Their physical health isn't a priority. Why don't we talk about how to rein that entity in? But we don't. We don't. Why don't we talk about, yes, the pedophiles who have preyed on our young athletes, our boy athletes and our girl athletes? Larry Nassar was a name that was brought up. Where is the horror and outrage and shock over what that individual did? At one point, we were debating a bill where adults would be responsible for checking the genitalia of young kids, like to make a determination of who was a boy or who was a girl. And I'm sorry, no one here who is a parent or is a godparent or an uncle or an aunt to a child would be okay hearing some story of some rando who's now been authorized to check the genitalia of their child because they just want to make sure of something. Get out of here. Get out of here. Go straight to jail. And if you're talking about, well, the women are the victims, the girls are the victims, let's fight for them. Yeah, okay. There's a list of young girls in those Epstein files. There is a young child, a minor, okay, in her journal, documentation of exploitation, sexual abuse, rape, and forced abortion, a survivor of Epstein. We're not talking about her. In this latest tranche, not the full release of the files. An 11 or 12 or 13-year-old girl, naked, tied up, spread with her legs open, on a man's knee, being burned with a magnifying glass. No one is sharing any outrage over that. I see your face. Exactly. That was my face too. Disgusting, egregious, horrific, a child. If that was your child, And you have a DOJ that is putting the names of these women out there to be attacked and abused and vilified. And no one has any outrage. But you're going to go up in arms and have all this drama about a transgender person. Most people, real talk, have never even met a transgender person. It's like a boogeyman. Like, talk about fight for these girls that are in these files that were abused, burned up, raped. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Further discussion, Ms. Hageman.
Just very briefly, I think that the Epstein files have now been mentioned upwards of 20 times during the course of this markup today, when what we're focusing on is whether we need to adopt a law to prevent men from participating in women's athletics. One person even made the accusation that there is this whole slew of powerful men who have been covering for Jeffrey Epstein and their abusers. Well, you want to know who actually ran cover for Epstein? Who actually covered for the abuser? Do you want to know who actually protected Jeffrey Epstein? Well, her name is Stacey Plaskett, and she is a Democrat representative from the Virgin Islands. So if you want to go in and look at the Epstein files, why don't you go ahead and do a word search for Stacey Plaskett, representative from the Virgin Islands, the woman who was Jeffrey Epstein's fixer. So if you want to talk about powerful men covering for Epstein, I think Stacey Plaskett has something as well to answer for being Jeffrey Epstein's fixer. So I would start on that side of the aisle to determine what kind of work she was doing for Mr. Epstein, because we know that she was his fixer, and her name is in the Epstein files repeatedly. So I think that what we really need to focus on here is the bill at hand, which is whether men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. I think we need to get back and kind of focus what we're talking about here, and that's what it is. If you want to talk about Epstein, I think the first person we need to go to is Stacey Plaskett. If you want to talk about the issue at hand, let's focus on this. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Further discussion, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I rise in support of the gentlelady's amendment. Let me just respond immediately to what we just heard. Donald Trump was, by Jeffrey Epstein's own account, Jeffrey Epstein's closest friend for more than a decade. I'm happy to yield to the gentle lady from Wyoming if she chooses to deny that or has some evidence to rebuff that.
Absolutely.
Oh, you don't accept any of the photographic?
No evidence of that whatsoever.
Have you ever seen a photograph of Jeffrey?
Who was your attorney?
I'm reclaiming my time, Ms. Hageman. Reclaiming my time, Ms. Hageman.
Who was Epstein's attorney?
I'm reclaiming my time.
The committee will come to order.
I'm very happy.
Mr. Raskin controls the time. Mr. Raskin.
There are tons of photographs of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, which the gentlelady apparently chooses not to see with her own eyes. There's lots of video.
What's the last date of
There's lots of video evidence of it. They were best friends for more than a decade. Okay? You will find a lot of stuff out. If you are hinging your case on the idea that Donald Trump didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, you are in for a very serious public collapse if that's your argument. As this comes forward,
that wasn't my
you
argument.
Cannot compare.
My argument is about Stacey Plaskett.
Excuse me, I'd like my time restored, okay?
The committee will be in order. Mr. Raskin controls the time, and he has not yielded. Mr. Raskin.
Stacey Plaskett is barely a comma in the encyclopedia of Donald Trump's complicity and involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and his international human sex trafficking ring. Okay, and if you don't understand that and you don't believe it, then you've not done anything to familiarize yourself with the evidence, Ms. Hageman. I'm sorry. And I know that your predecessor in office, Ms. Cheney, would have done that. She was scrupulous and she was studious and she took the facts seriously and she was not an ideologue who just fell for a cult leader. Okay? Now, back to the matter at hand. Presently, the Olympic Committee has already made the decision, I think, in more than half of the sports. So it's already decided, for example, that with respect to boxing, with respect to rugby, with respect to swimming, with respect to tennis, and with respect to volleyball, as I understand it, that all of these are limited to the sex assigned at birth. That's already been decided. So we are intervening now as the United States Congress to make a decision about a miscellaneous category of a handful of other sports, which have not even been mentioned by our colleagues, which appear to still be open to transgender athletes. Here are the ones that I see them are skateboarding, skiing and snowboarding, table tennis, ping pong, and then ultimate frisbee. Now, perhaps someone over there can explain why, when American citizens are being shot in the face by federal agents and the entire heartland of the country is in an uproar because of Donald Trump's private paramilitary army that nobody on the other side seems to want to talk about, we should be talking about whether or not transgender girls or women should be able to participate in ultimate frisbee competitions. Because that's really what we're talking about today. But they sure would much rather be talking about that than anything else. They don't want to talk about what's really in the Epstein files. I'm surprised, I'm stunned, I'm astonished, I'm flabbergasted by Ms. Hageman, who seems to go way beyond anything else I've heard from other Republicans. She seems to be in open denial that Donald Trump and Melania Trump had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. That's astonishing to me. I think she's setting herself for a huge public relations fall by going that far. Oh, here's some photographs, Ms. Hageman. How do you see about those? Do you think those are created by artificial intelligence? You got any problem with any of those pictures of your hero with Jeffrey Epstein, his closest friend for more than a decade? Thank you for bringing forth the photographic evidence. Keep that up for a while. Apparently some people haven't seen those pictures. They're very happy to talk about Stacey Plaskett, the non-voting delegate from the Virgin Islands, or Bill Clinton. And anybody who was involved in any crime should be punished for it, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent. I'll say it right now. Will Ms. Hageman, the very distinguished gentle lady from Wyoming, say that? Will she say that Republicans should be punished for their crimes if they were complicit in a billion-dollar international child sex trafficking ring? I don't think so. I don't think she'll say it, not if it's Donald Trump. It's all about Donald Trump following him off into a path of oblivion. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Is there further discussion? Mr. Moore.
I yield to the gentlelady from Wyoming.
Just very briefly, it clearly hit a nerve, didn't I, Mr. Raskin?
Oh, very much so, because you don't tell the truth.
It's very obvious.
And that hits a huge nerve.
I think that it's very obvious.
Ms. Hageman,
I'll interrupt her the same number of times she interrupted me, Mr. Chairman.
Controls the time and is not yielded.
Mr. Chairman, hold on. The ranking member just accused the gentlelady of lying. And I don't...
Never use that word. Never use that word.
Didn't he say about not telling the truth?
The committee will be in order, Mr.
That was the standard established earlier today, Mr. Roy. You weren't here.
The committee will be in order. Does Mr. Roy make a point of order?
May I inquire as to whether the gentleman with the ranking member accused the gentlelady of not telling the truth? I heard something to that effect that I might have misheard.
If the gentlelady was denying that Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein, that would not be a truth that I could endorse in the world of objective reality.
This is my time. I never made that claim.
I'll yield back for now, Mr. Chairman.
Everybody calm down here, okay? The committee will be in order. I would remind members to direct their comments to the chair. The gentleman will continue in order. Oh, pardon me, gentlelady will continue in order.
Thank you. The point of this is that nobody has made that claim, yet in order to try to deflect attention from the fact that Stacey Plaskett was Jeffrey Epstein's fixer, the ranking member has become hysterical over the fact that there are published photographs of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody on this side has ever claimed otherwise or that they did not know each other. They absolutely did. But Donald Trump was not the attorney or the fixer for Jeffrey Epstein. Stacey Plaskett was. So the point that I am making is when you have accusations being made by the other side about powerful men covering up for Jeffrey Epstein, I think the very first person you need to look to is Stacey Plaskett, a powerful woman via New York and the Virgin Islands. That was the point. That doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. That has to do with whether Stacey Plaskett is associated with Jeffrey Epstein, and she clearly is, as is shown by the records. So if you are concerned about powerful people covering up for Jeffrey Epstein, perhaps you need to visit with Stacey Plaskett first. That was the point, Mr. Raskin, and I don't think there's anything further to say. I yield back.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back.
What you just witnessed was a room full of people screaming about Epstein connections, while selectively ignoring the most documented ones depending on which party benefits. Let's start with the facts about Stacey Plaskett. Because Hageman wasn't wrong that there's serious smoke here, she just conveniently left out that her own party's leader is standing in a 5-alarm fire. According to the documents released from Epstein's estate and FBI files made public just days ago, Plaskett's connections to Epstein run deep and span over a decade. She worked from 2007 to 2012 as general counsel for the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority. During the same period, that office granted $219.8 million in tax benefits to Epstein's financial trust company. She then went to work from 2013 to 2014 directly for Erica Kellerhals, Epstein's longtime attorney, and, according to multiple sources, his political fixer in the Virgin Islands. Kellerhals was the one who received Epstein's last will and testament 2 days before he died and filed it with the court 5 days later. In 2014, emails show Plaskett arranging to visit Epstein on Little St. James, his private island where the sex trafficking occurred, for an 11 a.m. meeting. This was 6 years after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. She visited the island again on May 18, 2019, just 2 months before Epstein's arrest on federal sex trafficking charges, accompanied by Kellerhals. Text messages released show that in September 2018, Plaskett asked Epstein if it would be presumptuous to consider you a friend, to which Epstein replied, "Privileged to be called friend." She shared non-public legislative information with him, texting, "You're the first person I told about IRS decisions affecting Virgin Islands tax residency rules." And yes, during the February 2019 Michael Cohen hearing, Epstein texted her suggestions about questions to ask, including telling her to ask about Rona, keeper of the secrets, referring to Trump assistant Rona Graff, which Plaskett then incorporated into her questioning. Former Virgin Islands First Lady Cecile de Jong, who also worked as Epstein's office manager, sent an email in June 2014 soliciting Epstein's campaign donations for Plaskett, writing, "We would have a friend in Stacey." Epstein donated $8,100 to Plaskett's campaigns, which she returned to women's organizations only after his 2019 arrest. She was also named as a defendant in a federal lawsuit filed by victims, alleging Virgin Islands officials used their political influence to facilitate Epstein's trafficking. A judge dismissed most defendants, but allowed claims against Plaskett to proceed in her individual capacity before the case was eventually settled. So let's be absolutely clear. This is bad, really bad. Working for Epstein's attorney, visiting his island years after his conviction, calling him a friend, sharing inside legislative information, taking his advice during a congressional hearing, none of that is defensible. If Plaskett enabled Epstein's operation in any way, she should face consequences. Full stop. But here's where Hageman's entire argument collapses into bad faith partisan hackery. If you're going to call Plaskett Epstein's fixer for those connections, what exactly do you call Donald Trump? Because according to every available piece of documentation, court records, photographs, flight logs, interviews, in Trump's own words, Trump had a close personal friendship with Epstein spanning from the late 1980s through at least the mid-2000s. In 2002, Trump told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." Trump flew on Epstein's private jet, the plane later dubbed the Lolita Express, at least 7 times between 1993 and 1997, according to DOJ flight logs. NBC archival footage from 1992 shows Trump and Epstein at a Mar-a-Lago party together, chatting and pointing at women dancing. They were photographed together repeatedly throughout the 1990s and early 2000s at Mar-a-Lago and at Victoria's Secret events. Epstein attended Trump's 1993 wedding to Marla Maples. In 2003, Trump sent Epstein a birthday letter featuring a hand-drawn naked woman with Trump's signature positioned to mimic pubic hair, containing an imagined dialogue where Trump says, "We have certain things in common, Jeffrey," and concludes, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." And in August 2017, recordings obtained by the Daily Beast, Epstein himself described Trump as his closest friend for more than a decade and claimed that Trump first had sex with Melania on Epstein's plane. Now, Trump claims he had a falling out with Epstein around 2004 and hadn't spoken to him in 15 years by 2019. The explanations for this falling out have varied: that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep, that Epstein stole spa employees, that Epstein harassed a member's daughter. Mar-a-Lago's records show Epstein's membership as closed around October 2007, right around the time Epstein was indicted in Florida, and about 8 months before he pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution from a minor. So when Hageman sat in that hearing and said, "I think there's absolutely no evidence that Trump and Epstein were close friends," she was either lying or she's never looked at a single photograph, read a single court document, or listened to Trump's own voice saying Epstein was a terrific guy who likes beautiful women. And many of them are on the younger side. Raskin literally held up photographs during the hearing. This isn't debatable, it's documented. So what does this mean? Why does any of this matter? For the person watching this, it means we've reached a point where accountability is entirely partisan. Plaskett's connections to Epstein are serious and deserve investigation, but so do Trump's. The difference is that Democrats like Raskin will say, "Investigate everyone. I don't care what party they're in." While Republicans will scream about Plaskett while denying photographic evidence of Trump's decade-long friendship with a convicted sex trafficker. It's like if someone stole your car and when you called the police, they arrested you for jaywalking last week while letting the car thief drive away. For our institutions, it means the evidence doesn't matter anymore if it implicates the leader of the Republican Party. When a sitting congresswoman can deny that Trump knew Epstein despite hundreds of photographs, flight logs, court documents, and Trump's own words calling him a terrific guy, we're not having a political disagreement, we're watching coordinated gaslighting. This is the same pattern we've seen over and over. Access Hollywood tape, locker room talk. January 6th, peaceful protest. Epstein friendship, never happened. The goal isn't to tell the truth. It's to create an alternate reality where Trump is always innocent, no matter what the evidence shows. And here's what gets completely buried in all this partisan screaming. Representative Kamlager-Dove's original point. She brought up the Epstein files to highlight the documented, horrific abuse of actual children. An 11, 12, or 13-year-old girl burned with a magnifying glass, girls who were raped, trafficked, forced into abortions. Those are the victims. And what's Congress doing about it? Absolutely nothing. Instead, Republicans are using those victims' suffering as a political weapon to attack Democrats while defending Trump, and Democrats are using it to attack Trump while defending Plaskett. Meanwhile, Larry Nassar sexually abused more than 265 women and girls over 2 decades, including Olympic gymnasts Simone Biles, Aly Raisman, and Michaela Maroney. The FBI failed to investigate for 14 months, allowing an estimated 70 to 120 more victims to be abused. That's a real crisis in protecting girls in sports. But we're not talking about systemic reforms to prevent abuse. We're talking about fewer than 10 transgender athletes out of 510,000 NCAA competitors. And for what? According to NCAA President Charlie Baker's December 2024 testimony, there are less than 10 transgender athletes competing in college sports out of more than 510,000 total student athletes. That's 0.002% of NCAA athletes. But Republicans would rather spend hours screaming about that microscopic issue and attacking Plaskett to deflect from Trump than address the actual, documented, systemic failures that allowed predators like Nassar and Epstein to abuse hundreds of girls for decades. Here's the bottom line, and I want to be crystal clear about this. Investigate everyone. Investigate Stacey Plaskett. Investigate Donald Trump. Investigate Bill Clinton. Investigate anyone and everyone who enabled, facilitated, or turned a blind eye to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation. I don't care what party they're in. If they're guilty, they should face consequences. But what happened in that hearing wasn't about accountability, it was about deflection. Republicans brought up Plaskett not because they suddenly care about Epstein's enablers, but because Raskin brought up Trump's friendship with Epstein. If they actually cared about investigating everyone connected to Epstein, Hageman would have said, "You're right, Raskin. Trump's friendship with Epstein is deeply troubling and should be investigated. And so should Plaskett's. Let's investigate them all." But that's not what she said. She denied Trump's connection entirely, despite overwhelming evidence, while calling Plaskett Epstein's fixer. That's not accountability. That's partisanship, using child abuse victims as political props. And the victims of Epstein's trafficking, the victims of Larry Nassar's abuse, the actual girls who were harmed, they deserve better than this cynical theater. They deserve real investigations that follow the evidence wherever it leads, regardless of party. They deserve systemic reforms to prevent future abuse. They deserve a Congress that cares more about protecting children than protecting politicians. Instead, they got a hearing about transgender athletes that turned into Partisan screaming about Epstein while both sides protected their own. That's not justice. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like this video so more people can see it. Subscribe to the channel for clear, fact-based coverage that cuts through the noise. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload when new videos go live. And share this with your friends and family to help spread the word and keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching. Bye.